All right, got the GS 1250 GS out this morning. Gonna take her to work. Got to head over those mountains. Let's do this. Get on like a horse because I got bags on it. So anyway, yeah, picked up a 2023 R1250 GS trophy model, trophy trim level. This one also has the split seat instead of a single seat. It has the enduro pegs and off-road tires. As you can hear, they're a wee bit noisy, but you know, that's the way it is with some knobby type tires. I think they are Metzler Karoo 3s. They seem okay. I've probably put, what do we got there? Let's cycle through and see. I think I have about 400 miles on it yet. Picked it up on Saturday, rode it home. That was probably 30 miles. And then me and the wife spent a fair good amount of time on it on Sunday, just poking around the local area, getting used to the clutch. And of course, yeah, I'm using the clutch now. I don't have to. It's got a speed shifter, but old habits are hard to break. So yeah, I rode it to work a couple of times, or just once actually, and here we are at 411 miles. I think the first service is 600, which is oil change in the motor, final drive oil change, and I'm probably gonna put some Molly B on the splines on the drive shaft. Looks like a fairly simple job, so no point in not doing it. And so far, the miles I put on the bike have been pretty close to perfect. This is, I mean, I only have 400 miles on my belt, so, you know, hard to say, but this is probably close to, if not, the best bike I've owned so far. And I've been riding for 45 plus years. Dirt bikes, started on dirt bikes, then an enduro, been riding on the street since I was 14. I really don't have any complaints on this guy. It's a very well thought out bike. Everything works like it should. Everything's I don't know, it's just perfect. I guess your only issue with a BMW motorcycle is the possibility of reliability, right? Issues. We'll see what happens. That's all you can do. Do your preventive maintenance and ride the bike. Probably the longest time stretch I had in the seat was on Sunday. I think I sat for almost 2 hours, and I'll have to say, for a stock seat, this is definitely one of the best stock seats I've ever had. I don't see any need to change anything as far as the seating goes. Handlebar placement is good, at least for my size and my reach. The controls are taking a little bit to get used to. The clutch is slightly different. The boxer engine is slightly different. Not different good or different bad, just different. Getting used to the TFT and cycling through all the menus, and I think the key to that was turning off stuff that I'll never use, like the little brake reminder, coffee cup things. Like, what the hell is that about? Who uses that? If you do, please post in the comments, because I want to know what you use that for. I don't need a TFT to tell me when I need to take a break, but anyway, I just find that kind of comical. Probably one complaint, not really a complaint, but I think resetting the trip meter involves about 3 or 4 menu presses. That's borderline ridiculous. I don't know how else they could do it, but I shouldn't have to go deep into a menu to reset a trip meter. It's kind of silly. I think it's at least 3 presses, maybe more. Other than that one thing, oh wait, strike that. 2 things, and it's just a matter of getting used to the BMW switches. The turn signal switch literally has no feedback. You can't feel it click. The only thing you can feel is when you cancel it, it clicks in, but like pushing it left and right, I have to always verify by looking at the TFT if my turn signals are on. So yeah, maybe I'm just used to Japanese switches, which I like. Again, I don't know if it's a complaint, probably not, just a matter of getting used to these switches. I don't find the menu system in the TFT all that cumbersome. I know a lot of people a lot of people are disliking all the technology they're putting into bikes. I can understand that. I'm not huge on it either. Especially when I had the Africa Twin. I didn't see the point of having, you know, traction control and all that on a 90 horsepower motorcycle. It just didn't make any sense to me. And having to turn, you know, the traction control off to have full control of the bike every time you got on it was slightly annoying. I mean, you could put it in, I think the modes I ran with 131, so one press of the traction control put you in 130, which is on the Africa Twin, the model I had, is the best throttle setting. I think maximum engine braking and no traction control or wheelie control. The wheelie control, traction control on that bike was very aggressive, to the point where a couple of times it would kick in when I didn't need it. Say on just happened to gradually be riding through wet grass or just, you know, some slippery cement, and it cut the power right when I needed it most. Kind of annoying. And basically that was because it resets itself every time you shut the bike off, and you have to remember to turn it off. Anyway, again, too much technology. A lot of people like it. I don't. This bike, on the other hand, I can see where the traction control is probably needed. This thing's a torque monster. If you're in the wet, or if you're in slippery surfaces, you don't need 136 or whatever horsepower this thing has, or 100 foot-pounds of torque, however you want to look at it, on those surfaces. So having some intervention is kind of nice. I think those guys you see on the BMWs headed the other way. There's a ride, I think, in Marietta this weekend, and they're headed that way. Of course, me, I'm headed to work, so no playing. So yeah, there's always that debate, you know, that a guy goes through, GS or GSA, and you know, do you want the extra suspension and the almost 8 gallons of gas? Or do you want to go with the trimmer, sleeker GS model that I believe, what is it, 5.8 gallons of gas, slightly less suspension? I went with the GS because I think I want to try riding this guy off-road. And yeah, I know with the GSA, you just don't fill up the gas tank, right? And you got the same bike, just fatter. But I kind of counted on, the only time the gas ranges, or fuel range will come into play, I think for me and my wife, is just fuel stops while we're on the road. And 5 gallons, if you can get almost 50 miles per gallon, that's pretty safe to say you can do 200 miles a tank. And the couple of trips we did last year on the Africa Twin, 200 miles worked out. Of course, like the GSA, the Africa Twin Adventure Sports, if you fill it up with gas, it does get 50 to 52 miles per gallon. And so you got like a 350-mile range, and that's kind of nice. I got spoiled with range because I had a ST 1300 that held, you know, lots of gas, over 7 gallons. And man, it was sure nice just taking off on that thing and not have to focus so much that your stops need to be at a gas station. But I don't know. It's probably a mental thing, thinking that the smaller, skinnier bike would be easier to ride off-road. It's probably not. If it becomes an issue in a few years, we'll trade this in and get a GSA, right? It's only money. It'll be interesting in the wintertime, or maybe if we get to do some night riding, to check out this adaptive headlight. It looks pretty cool in the YouTube videos. I've never ridden a bike with an adaptive headlight that you know, stays flat when you bank over and it's a turn, so that you can actually light up where you're going, not the hillside. I know some people change out the front signals on these because they claim the running light, the way it's set up from the factory, is not visible, so they change them out for better visibility. I'm not going to worry about that. If anything, I'll put some driving lights on, yellow ones, for when I commute. Those seem to work well instead of relying on turn signals, or running lights in that case. So the turn signals are actually running lights as well, and you can switch it out. A company makes a set of stalks that are, then they're really bright, and they change from white to yellow. I kind of like them staying yellow all the time, and I think that company makes them so that they're yellow all the time. Bright yellow is probably more noticeable to the car drivers, cage drivers. At least that's been my experience. All my other bikes have yellow driving lights on them. As far as modifications on this guy goes, I'm just waiting for some engine guards. They should be in maybe today, maybe tomorrow. Got the GV stainless ones. Thought the silver would look better than the black, and a little bit of a protection in case we tip over. I never put engine guards on the Africa Twin. I took the Africa Twin off-road one time and decided I really didn't want to do that again. It's a great off-road bike. It's just too heavy. I have dirt bikes for that, and I guess you get spoiled by 250-pound bikes. You know, you jump on an Africa Twin or this thing, it's 500 pounds, and try to rip down a trail. It can be done, and I will do it, but that's why I'm putting guards on this one. The Africa Twin was probably a way better off-road bike than this, but we'll find out with my son riding it. He also has a KTM 500 EXE, so he's used to a little bit of dirt riding. Ergonomics on this bike feel great. My feet feel like they're in the right position. The knees have the probably the right amount of bend. The bike fits me well. I like it. I don't see any need for any changes. Handlebars are where they need to be. Foot pegs are where they need to be. Brake and clutch feel good. The electronic suspension on this guy is pretty cool. You know, being able to select preload and damping with buttons is awesome. I don't know how awesome it'll be if it ever fails, but kind of cool to do on the fly. the rider modes, the mode button here on the right hand side. If you select modes while you're on the move, all you gotta do is close the throttle and we'll switch to the next mode. I'm in road mode right now, which is pretty casual. It's got a casual throttle setting. I think I have the dampening on auto. I have the preload on minimum. And that's just because I want to avoid all the bumps and dips in this road that's been under construction for 2+ years. And I can't really ride fast anyway, so just kind of loafing along, enjoying the ride, checking out the scenery. Pretty plush ride on road mode with the spring set to minimum. I did go through last night learning how to run this TFT and get rid of some of the options that I didn't really want to see. I left one trip meter. You can see I'm cycling through at the top right there. I left TPS. I don't think you can get rid of range remaining. It's a permanent addition to the TFT, and then a fuel gauge. So I went with those settings. I got rid of the brake time, the additional trip meter, the 2 timers. There's like 14 or 13 different things you can select. It's kind of crazy. And you can't scroll back. So as you're scrolling through them, if you miss the one you want, you've got to scroll through all 13 options again to get back to where you want. So getting rid of most of them removes all those options, and I only see what I want to see. Total miles, trip meter miles, TPS, miles to empty, fuel gauge. In uneven broken pavement like this, I did notice these Karoo 3 tires. They really like to grab the line and pull the bike in whichever direction. They're not smoothly rolling over the unevenness of the asphalt. I have Midas EO7s on my Himalayan, and they don't do that. Of course, it could be the weight of the bike. I don't know. Although the Himalayan's a fat pig, it runs perfectly smooth through all this uneven pavement. So I'm blaming the tires for now. My Africa Twin didn't do it either, and I think I had Scorpion, probably 60/40 tires on that. I don't remember the model name. I even have Shinko big blocks on the Versys, and it doesn't do it. It rolls perfectly smooth through all this construction. First I thought maybe, you know, too much air, not enough air pressure, but the air pressure's spot on from what the manual says. For an adventure bike, she does really well in the acceleration department. An amazing wheelie bike too. I wouldn't know, but I've seen videos. It's on the internet, it must be true. I watched a tire review on these tires. Speaking of tires, the guy had them mounted up on a Africa Twin, and they were scrubbed in, and he was on a road pretty much like this but with no traffic, so he was able to get in the throttle a little bit. And once he reached a certain lean angle, his traction control went nuts. I mean, that rear tire started to break, slip. So something to be aware of if you're running these tires. I don't know how well they do on the GS. I think the GS has a wider rim, so you've got a little bit different profile on the footprint, but I found that was interesting, that he could basically break loose the rear tire in a turn anytime he wanted on dry, warm asphalt at that. Another thing I was able to do, and it looks like I need to tilt it down a little bit. So the bike came wired for GPS, and I believe BMW uses a Garmin. It's probably a couple generations older than the Zumo XT that I had. I bought this XT for the Africa Twin just last year. It's a nice GPS, I like it. I wish I kind of would have known about the whole Android ruggedized tablet with the special software. That seems to be a much better option, but maybe later. But anyway, so that's the BMW cradle still mounted to the bar above the TFT. And what I did was take that apart and remove the BMW proprietary attachment bracket, and looked at how I could mount the one that came with the Zumo that I had on the Africa Twin. And it looked like if I drilled the holes over to the right maybe 4 or 5 millimeters, and then down 2 or 3 millimeters, and then put a couple of spacers or washers behind between the bolts and this cradle, that it would fit. So I busted out the drill, did some work, sure enough it fits right in there. I haven't hooked up or made a rod that slides over when you turn the key or move this lever in the back to lock it in place, which I'll probably do, but I don't know. I don't leave my GPS on my bike, so I probably won't do it. But yeah, you could actually enable the locking feature too if you want. The only thing with the Zumo is the signal wire has nothing to hook up to. There's 3 wires coming out of the BMW wiring harness. There's a positive and a negative, and a signal wire that's hooked to your wheel over here, or hooked to your ECU or one of the mini computers, so you can interface with the GPS with your wheel. I don't have that option. So you know, earlier I mentioned that I wanted to get a bike that was a little more streetable, better two-up than the Africa Twin. Africa Twin did okay on our two-up trips, but you could tell the brakes, everything was struggling a little bit. The suspension, with all of our weight, and we had gear because we had planned on camping, so we were probably right at the max weight of that bike. And it worked, it just wasn't happy. I have a feeling this bike will do a lot better at that. And then you got guys that say, well, if that's what you needed, why didn't you just get a Goldwing? Well, I think that's the wrong question. Why aren't you going and asking the Goldwing guys, why didn't they get a GS? That's the question. Yeah. Really? So, first ride basically with all the bags on this guy, and it's a little extra weight on the back, but man, this bike sure deals with it a lot better than the Africa Twin did. You could actually feel even the empty bags on the Africa Twin. I don't even notice these on here. Hey look, quick shifter shift. Pretty cool, huh? That takes some getting used to. every ounce of my soul's like, don't do that. Old habits are hard to break. Not a bad habit. Great. Bugs. Why are so many bugs? It's green, guys. Yay. I do believe the windshield is all the way up right now, and it's okay. If not, let's turn on the cruise control, and I can reach up here and make sure. Oh no, looks like I can go up a little bit higher. Yeah, that's actually a little better. I've never had cruise control before, and for our trips, that's going to be a game changer. I mean, being able to release grip and relax for a minute or two doesn't get any better than that. 8675309. If you're the right age, you'll know what that is. Funny, my wife thinks he's saying, when she was a kid, she doesn't think it now, but when she was a kid, she used to think that guy was saying jam and jelly. That's pretty funny. Can you imagine a bunch of kids hanging out on a sleepover singing jam and jelly? The only place wind is hitting me is right here, and you can see. So that's where the GSA fairing would come in. It would block that. But in the summertime, when it's 100 degrees, I wouldn't want that blocked. Almost all the jackets have a nice vent right there. You can get some airflow right in your arms, up through your armpits and out the back. Works pretty good. Popped her in rain mode since I'm a noob on a GS. The best way I can describe the changes it makes in the throttle is it feels like you have a lot of slack in your throttle cable. So you're rolling on the throttle and nothing happens for a while. And that gradually changes as you go through the different modes. I think road, maybe eco, is maybe the same or worse in rain than roads. You know, a little less slack in the cable, and dynamic, a little less slack, and enduro, I think you get the real deal. Of course, I think there's a dynamic and an enduro programmable mode. It's called Enduro Dynamic Pro, but it doesn't mean you're a pro. It means it's programmable. So yeah, you don't instantly become a professional rider when you put it in pro mode. I was kind of let down by that. Darn. Quit looking at yourself in the mirror and go. You're beautiful. Just go. Okay, so yeah, that was my commute to work. My basically my second commute on the GS. Didn't really film the first one because I was still getting used to the bike, and I'd rather pay attention to what's going on when becoming familiar with the bike versus messing with a camera and trying to provide some commentary. But yeah, so we rode through mountains. We got some freeway. We got some urban riding, and then various weather too. Is we had sunshine, cooler temperatures in the mountains, and then rain over in Orange County. So a little bit of everything today. Um, anyway, hopefully that's just one of many more commutes to come on the bike, as far as some trips and eventually maybe some off-road adventures with this heavy thing. Um, I mean, I don't have huge expectations for it being, an amazing off-road bike, but I can see how it would work well on dirt roads, gravel roads, packed dirt. Obviously, there's YouTube videos of people doing some crazy crap on them. I don't know that I'm gonna fall into that crazy crap category ever, but because I have purpose bikes for that, dirt bikes, Enduros, etc. Anyway, hope you liked the video, and if you did, could you give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you can? It will help. You guys ride safe, and we'll see you out there.